Hi everyone, I'm Sam Robertson from Jim's Building Inspections. We're in beautiful Bentley, Victoria today on site to look at a pre-purchase building inspection, take you through the steps of a building inspection. We're here with Tim Freshney, one of our local franchisees. Hi Tim.
Hi Sam.
Now Tim, what is the importance of getting a building inspection for home buyers?
We can go through, have a good look through the house. We go right through the roof, under the house, right through in the house, and just have a really good look through to make sure that we find any issues. Basically anything that's going to cost you money that you might want to know about when you're purchasing the most expensive thing in your life.
Now people, when they buy, they see the house, it's obviously been done up, freshly painted, all those sort of things, because the seller brings it up to scratch to sell it, but there are always those hidden defects that we can come across.
Yeah, absolutely. And in previous experience, I've been that person that's been going through and preparing the house for sale, and not necessarily trying to hide things, but draw attention away in other areas. So having that experience of having been that person doing it, I can look at that with different eyes and get a good idea of what may have happened, and sort of do a little bit of an archaeological dig, if you like, to try and figure out what's actually happened at the house.
And I suppose when home buyers get us in, we take the emotion away from it, don't we? Because we're professionals in terms of looking for defects and what the actual house is sitting on.
That's right. And I think part of the benefit of having someone who isn't emotionally involved in it is important in terms of being able to just present the information. Not there to tell you whether you should buy the house or not. It's more about letting you know the condition of the house, and then you being able to make that decision based on all the facts that you probably wouldn't have had if you didn't have a building inspection done.
Now Tim, you're a qualified builder, been in the building game for a long time.
Yes.
What was the reason for the change?
It was just being able to leverage all the experience in carpentry, waterproofing, and sort of doing inspections for people and not getting paid for them, I guess, and being able to formalise that, and being a little bit more flexible in what I was doing and not so tied down to specific jobs for sort of 6 to 12 months at a time. It just makes it a lot easier and takes a lot of pressure off, to be quite honest, as well. So it's been a good move.
And getting off the tools is obviously a little bit of an advantage and something you enjoy.
It's an advantage until I start doing some stuff at home, and then I feel it afterwards. But yeah, it's definitely been a positive side of it. Yeah.
Now, Jim's Building Inspections is the largest building inspector in Australia and New Zealand.
Yep.
Why do you think that's the case?
They've just got great support. The technology behind it, the app we talk about a lot, it's nice and easy to use, the systems that are set up in place, and just the support from the office, and everyone knows the name, and that adds a good portion of credibility to what you're doing as well.
And in terms of credibility, all our guys and girls are all qualified building professionals, which is something that you need to have when you're doing these types of inspections, I would have thought.
Yeah, absolutely. It's it is a largely unregulated industry as such, but having that knowledge and experience, and that's vetted out before you can join, was one of the things that really attracted me to it as well.
Okay, well let's get to it. We'll take you through a pre-purchase building inspection. So here we are on the outside of the property. We're looking for defects as we walk around, but I thought I'd just ask Tim, what are we actually looking for in a building inspection?
So we break down the classifications of what we find within the property as far as safety defects, so anything it might be electrical, gas, or it could even be a tripping hazard or something like that, down to minor defect, which is generally a maintenance item.
Yep.
That really is not going to be either here or there if it's actually fixed or not, but it's always good to know. To a major defect, which is likely to cause further damage, and it could be a major structural defect. And most contracts have if it's a condition of your sale, quite often you'll have an exit clause in the contract for a major structural defect. And that can either be something that you might look at renegotiating the contract, or even exiting the contract if it's serious enough. And then we go through with the termite as part of a pest inspection, and if we find any termite activity or previous damage and those sort of things as well, and conditions that we deem to be conducive to termite activities, so conditions that they may enjoy living in, if you like. So we want to make it as uncomfortable for them as possible.
So with the report, they've obviously got basically a maintenance report. They know what they have to do when they buy it to maintain the property.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's a really good point you make. If it's a major defect or major termite infestation, they can actually go back and renegotiate with the real estate agent. So
exactly.
for a small portion of what they pay for the building report, they could save themselves thousands in that critical stage, in that cooling off period, where they can go back and make sure they get the right price for the property and there's no surprises in the future.
That's right. Or take the opportunity that you've found something that you weren't aware of when you negotiated your initial purchase, and you may, if it's part of the contract, you may choose to exit the contract and save the headache and whatever else may be involved in that as well.
So most of the time we've got good news for the clients, but there's the occasional one where we have to have that conversation with them, don't we?
That's right.
Yeah.
And it really depends on the clients. I've had clients that have had a property looked at, and the stumps have been all but gone, but they've got a brother-in-law who's a re-stumper or something like that. So again, it's not about whether you should buy the house or not. It's about informing you about what is the issue with the house or issues with the house, and then just making sure you're aware of it, and you may very well be in a great position to fix those things very easily.
Okay, Tim, now you're looking on the roof. What are some of the things you're looking for?
So I'm looking to see the conditions of the tiles. This roof is a tiled roof. I'm looking to see the quality of the gutters, to see if there's any rusting in the gutters or if there's any debris blocking the downpipes. Also, there's quite a few chips in the corners of some of these tiles, which could lead to some leaking in the property. And also having a look at the ridge capping to see if any of that's loose or shifted as well. It looks okay. There's a few chips in some of the tiles. There is a little bit of debris in the gutters. It could be cleaned out, so that'll go in as a minor defect. And the recommendation will be to maybe look at changing a few tiles and a little bit of touch up on the pointing of the tiles on the ridge caps.
So Tim, we're now in this section of the house, so we've got some timber up here that looks like it needs a bit of work.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of wood rot coming through here, which it does look like it's just wood rot. We've got a little bit more over the side here where it connects to the house and the fascia. This is probably a little bit of a dead part of the house, so it probably doesn't dry out particularly well. So this could be an issue not only just for wood rot, it could even be some termite activity coming up the timber of the house there, which would then give them access into the house. And we've even got a bit of, if you can see there behind there, the door and the frame there's a little bit rotted as well. So there's quite a bit of vegetation around here, which is going to be affecting the ventilation of the house as well. And obviously with the steps here, there's a bit of a concealed spot as well. So that'd go in as minor defects, but also as a ventilation issue that could be a termite problem. And obviously a strong recommendation to fix the rotting timber, because as much as it is a minor defect in terms of wood rot, it's also, given that area there, that's also potentially a safety hazard as well. So that'd certainly be a reasonably urgent thing that would need to be fixed. So as I'm walking up towards the subfloor here, I've noticed that the deck, some of these boards are a bit loose. There's also some loose brickwork under here, probably from some previous plumbing works. And also this step, as I step down, is well oversized by today's standards. So that'd probably go in as a safety issue. As by today's standards, that wouldn't be compliant, but when this was built, it may have been. But it's hard to comment on that, but that's obviously potentially a safety issue that should be looked at. So under the house here, and there's a little bit of debris. There's quite often a little bit of rubbish under the house. The issue with that is it can potentially conceal defects. Also noticed this pipe looks like it's been replaced at one stage. This really should be clipped up to the underside of the joist, much like this one is here. And also the stumps here, we've got a little bit of bitumen flashing here, which stops the moisture going up through into the timber from the concrete. These really should have ant caps on them. They don't stop the termites, but they make life difficult for them and makes it easier for us to identify if there is some termite activity, because they have to actually come out and pass the ant caps there. This is all hardwood timber with a chipboard floor. Some people want to know that because you want to know if you can pull up the carpets and the floor coverings to polish the boards. In this case, they'd have to go over the chipboard for this particular house. And down a bit further here, we can see the plumbing pipes. So we'll go and have a look at those to see if there's any leaking or any staining under the subfloor as well, which would give us an indication of if there's been any current or previous leaks from the bathrooms or wet areas.
So Tim, you've just come out of the subfloor. It's really important to get in the subfloor when we're doing these types of inspections, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, there's a lot of, it's a forgotten area of the house, and it's not an area that people tend to go into. So going under the house may be the first time anyone's gone under the house since it was built, apart from maybe a few trades, electricians or plumbers or something like that. It's a place where we store materials, rubbish, baby gear or anything like that, and that can create a haven for pests to get in and take a foothold on your house. Yeah.
It also can tell a story of subfloor, can't it? Like if you've got a bathroom that's looks fine when you're in the house, it might have a little bit of missing grout you can't really identify. We can actually identify leaks under the house, can't we? With stained timbers and those sort of things.
Absolutely, and it can give us a bit of an idea of when a bathroom may have been renovated as well, so we can see different materials being used. If there has been any termite damage in the past, we can see if they've maybe replaced some of the building elements under there with newer products that don't match the existing, and obviously previous staining, and we're obviously more concerned if it's wet at the time, which would indicate a current water leak, which may require recommending a new bathroom. And
also piers and stumps. We say piers in New South Wales, stumps in
Victoria.
But you can see if there's been repairs before, and that obviously tells you a story, right? There was a problem over here, obviously, because they've re-stumped this area.
Yeah, and you can tell if the stump that's been used has been used specifically for re-stumping. It's a different connection method, and we're happier to see concrete stumps than we are timber. Timber can be more susceptible to termite activity, where they can burrow up the internal of a stump to get access to the house, because we're really clever and we build houses out of their food. So yeah, it's a good idea to make sure that that's looked at, and to consider a termite treatment at that point as well.
All right, let's continue on throughout the house.
Come around to a internal corner of the house here, and we've got some loose bricks here, possibly started off from a brick vent, and maybe some repairs or something's been done there. We've also got some mortar cracking here on the brickwork on both sides there. The age of this house, they didn't tend to have control joints or the silicon vertical joints installed in them, which can take up some of the cracking and it doesn't become as obvious. This house doesn't have them, and therefore we tend to get a few settling cracks or minor movement cracks as well. The size of these is not too significant, but it would certainly go in the report to be monitored. Yeah.
So here we are inside the house, a real typical house being brought up for sale. So freshly painted house, furniture looks all in pristine condition. So most home buyers are looking at, where they're going to have their kids, where they're going to watch their television, what the plantation shutters look like, all those sort of things. But we're actually looking for those hidden defects now in a freshly painted home.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the visual side of things is one thing, but we tend to be drawn to the furniture and the fresh paint and the vase of flowers and things like that. I'm sort of looking past all that, and I want to see what's been hidden. So, I'm looking to see if there's any cracks that have been patched up that, might indicate that there has been some building movement or something like that. And then my favourite toy/tool being my thermal imaging camera. So even just from looking at this, I can see that up in the top corner of the wall there's a few bits of insulation missing. It's without even getting up into the house. So you can see the redder sort of orange spots indicate where the insulation might be missing up in the roof there. You can even actually see where the timbers are in the wall and the studs in the wall there. It's a great little stud finder. But this gives me an ability to actually see through the wall to get an idea of what's actually happening behind it. So they can pick up on anything from possums to water leaks and everything in between.
And we have to stress the building inspection is a visual inspection. We can only see what we see. Yeah. But the thermal imaging camera definitely helps us look behind the walls a little bit.
Yeah, people would be pretty upset if we came in and started pulling walls apart and things like that. So, we have to work within the bounds of what we can, and there are certain limitations on what we do, and that's why tools like this are so important. This is an indicative instrument that gives us an idea of somewhere where we might look further. So if I find something that looks like it might be a water leak, I then pull out my moisture meter to check to see if there's actually any moisture there, or if it's just a cool draft coming through into the house that might be needing to be rectified. Yeah.
And all our building consultants carry moisture meters because they are a very important tool for us.
Yeah, definitely.
Because water's a house's worst enemy.
Yes. No, particularly helpful in the bathroom, so we can actually detect moisture through the tiles without having to break anything. And it gives us a really good indication of what's going on and where moisture has travelled, if it has. And some moisture's okay. It's all relative to the location. And again, those results need to be interpreted properly. So there's a crack there. We've got a crack here above the door here, which is typically straight between two sheets of plaster. So nice straight crack. I'd much rather see a straight crack than a diagonal crack. A lot less force required and a lot less building movement to cause that. And then on the other side here, they've attempted a repair and it's actually pushed the plaster back out. Again, it's from basic building movement, I believe. So they go in as a minor defect, but looks like they have attempted to patch it up.
So we've had a look at the ensuite, which has been recently renovated. Looks pretty good. But we see here we've got a bit of a dated bathroom.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things you're looking for in a particular area like this that can pose a few problems in terms of water damage?
Yeah, look, definitely the shower area here. It looks like there's been some sort of a repair or modification done here. The wall tiles are actually further recessed in than what the shower tiles are. So possibly they've actually gone over the top of the existing tiles here. And given the depth of the tiles there, that would indicate there's a cement sheet behind that. Given the age of the house, we'd need to find out the age as to whether it might be potentially asbestos in behind the tiles there. Also, just looking at general wear and tear, we've got some chips in the bath there, and down the bottom corner here we've got some grout caulking missing down the bottom of the shower there. This can all lead to moisture coming out of the shower when it's being used, so we'll certainly try and check the other side of the walls here to see if it has leaked out.
We've got a good old-fashioned shower base too, which seems to work better than the modern way of doing things now with showers directly on tiles.
Yeah, they're a bit more trusted.
Yeah.
There's a lot less that can go wrong, but they do tend to be... we sort of forget about them, and then we do the walls, tile the walls, and maybe it's not waterproof properly. Waterproofing is a trade. It is a technical job, as much as a lot of people think it's just slapping some paint on the walls. There is actually quite a bit of technique behind it, and doing that wrong, or even using the wrong types of components together, can lead to deterioration in the waterproofing membrane and subsequent leaks. Yeah. And
you just mentioned to me before, but we'll show the viewers, there was some major sort of grout missing over on this side.
Yeah.
So that tells us a story that there could be some water damage behind the wall, and that's where we could possibly use our thermal imaging camera to see if there's any issues there.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're on the wall on the other side of the bathroom that we were just in, where there was a little bit of grouting missing there, or caulking. We've come on the other side and we've actually got a little bit of water damage happening there. So as I said before, this is really indicative of what's happening. So that's when I bring in the moisture meter to confirm that. So if we come through, I have a look through there. There's really nothing there. As we come across, our moisture starts being identified. So look, at this point, you'd recommend an invasive inspection. I can't just go cutting into the wall to find out what's going on there, but what I can say with a degree of certainty is there is moisture in that wall, which, being on the other side of the bathroom, would indicate there is moisture coming from the bathroom, and that an invasive inspection would be recommended at that point to determine the cause and the amount of damage that's actually there too. So when I was under the subfloor, I noticed that copper pipe was loose, and that was pretty much underneath this bathroom. When I've come in here, not particularly scientific, but we're getting a little bit of bounciness in the floor here. So this could be the bearer and the joist rubbing. It could be that copper pipe that's loose, or any other pipe under there, or it could even be the sheeting between the subfloor and the tiles there. So it'd definitely go in there as a defect that would want to be looked at least monitored over time to see if it gets worse. So I'm up in the roof here, and a lot of the insulation has been moved out of the way. Some of it for halogen lights, because obviously you don't want too much heat around your halogen lights. But the insulation being disturbed the way it has, there's bits missing all over the place, is going to be affecting the energy efficiency of the house. And also up here, we've got a fairly large skylight. And in the process of installing this, they've actually cut through one of the rafters up on the roof here. So that'd certainly go down as a major defect, because, well, they've taken out part of the roof structure and they haven't modified the roof to account for that. So that's definitely a major issue that may lead to some sagging in the roof or something like that. And as for the rest of the roof here, it's really just the insulation and a bit of rubbish up here that really needs to be addressed. Again, that hides potential pest activity or something like that too. So yeah, we'll go back down and see what we can find. So in one of the back bedrooms here, we've got a crack running diagonally. It looks like if we sort of piece a few things together here, the gap in the door here, we can see the gap's a bit bigger here than what it is at this end. And then we've got this diagonal crack running across here. So there's been a little bit of movement here, and I'd suggest that this side of the wall has slightly, which may be the result of moisture issues. We're actually near where the wood rot was in the other part of in outside. So there may be a little bit of moisture in this particular area that may be settling on this side a bit more than the other side, which causes a little bit of building movement that's not consistent around the property, and that's when we start to get a few cracks like this. So that would definitely go down as a minor defect and a monitor. So I've been asked to come in here to do an asbestos audit on this bathroom. So what we're going to do, given the age of the house, it's pre-90s, so there's a chance there's asbestos linings behind all these surfaces, under the floor and behind the wall linings here as well. So what we need to do is to remove a section of tile and take a physical sample. We need a sample about the size of a 50-cent piece. So what we'll do there, I've got all my protective equipment here. and we give everything a spray down with water and PVA, which basically inhibits any fibres becoming airborne. We take a sample and then we send it off to the lab to be analysed. There's a lot of Googling that goes on about asbestos and how do I tell if it's asbestos. The simple fact is the only way to tell if it's asbestos is to send it off to a lab. They've got high power microscopes, they use special dyes, they're properly trained for this, they don't just Google the results. And you know, you got kids or other people in houses, it's just not worth the risk. So yeah, get it tested and know. And therefore you're also bringing trades into this environment. So you're asking, you know, the tiler, the carpenter, all these people to come into your house to work in an area that may be dangerous to their health. And you're obviously left with the residual of all that, so make sure you get it right.
Okay, so there you have it. We've finished our asbestos inspection. So what do we do from here?
So I package up the samples, send them off to the lab. We usually have the results back within 24 hours to 3 days, at which point the clients can make a decision as to what they're going to do.
So I just want to talk about the range of inspections we do and talk about, Tim, why with the career change from coming from building into a building inspection franchise such as this, a lot of the guys don't realise that we don't just do pre-purchase building inspections, we do a range of reports.
Yeah, that's right. So I've got a background in carpentry, registered builder, and you know, from doing new homes, extensions, renos, the standard spiel, you get to a point where you either embrace that and want to keep doing it. I got to a point where I felt it was time to make a change, and I looked into the different options, and I started that process. And the honest answer is that gyms were the first, and still to this day only one to get back to me.
Well, that's a start.
So I mean that flies through to even today with the leads that we get. If sometimes people have contacted 3 or 4 people, and you might be the first or you might be the only one to contact them, and it's basic customer service. You get back to them, and you're in the game. So, and those reports that we're doing, new construction, building and pest. For pre-purchase, building inspections, if you've got some structural issues you want to get identified, asbestos, meth, mould, dilapidation reports, depreciation, there's a wide range. And one of the good things that I really like about it is that you can turn on and off and offer those services, but you don't have to offer all those services. So that gives me the flexibility to do what I'm enjoying doing.
That's a good point you make. So a lot of franchisees come out, they try everything, try all the services, which is great, but they tend to find their niche after a while, and it's not necessarily what they thought they'd be doing at the start. It's something they've found their way into and found the way that they're better with clients and those sort of things with it.
Yeah, I think some of the times it can come down to what you're interested in. My kids at school do well at the subjects that they're interested in. They like the teachers, So I think it's similar to that. I've got a strong affinity for building and for waterproofing. So to that extent, I went and actually did a Certificate 3 in waterproofing, and I've mould. I've done further education on that as well. So having that extra knowledge and information is really important, but it's also made me better at my job in doing what I'm doing as well. So.
And having things like the call centre, the leads are getting through to you fairly quickly. So you're at a point where you're generally talking to the client first.
Yeah.
And conveying the range of services we can provide for the client. So their leads, they're quality leads, aren't they?
They are, and quite often, when you call the call centre, you've got the option to get transferred straight through. So there's not even a wait time there. Usually, the client will get contact within 5 or 10 minutes, maybe a bit longer if I'm stuck under a house somewhere or something like that. But generally within sort of 10 to 15 minutes, we're talking to the client, and quite often they're surprised that they've had a phone call. You know, you call them on a Sunday afternoon after they've put an online lead through or something like that, and like, oh, I didn't expect you to call until Monday, and you know, it's just common sense to do that.
Particularly with our type of reporting too, like people are actually anxious when they're buying a house or they're building, and they want to talk to someone there and then, and we're on the phone to them straight away, and they really do see, well, this is a professional group, he's got all my details, he's speaking to me straight away. That will relay onto the quality of his work and his inspection. Yeah,
absolutely. And having that, you know, usually when people are calling us, it's about a specific issue or query that they've got. But sometimes it can be just as simple as just wanting to do my due diligence. You know, we've heard a few horror stories. Nothing worse than getting a call from someone who bought a house 12 months ago and it's now got major issues, and they're kicking themselves that they didn't do a building and pest inspection or whatever it happens to be. So being there and doing that and having really good, happy customers is really important.
Okay, so here we are at a lock-up stage. So the client wants us to check for a defect report before they pay their progress payment for lock-up. I get a lot of questions from potential franchisees. Oh, the builder won't want me on site. You know, we're going to tell them all the doomsday problems that they've got. But a lot of the time, we're sort of that in-between person, aren't we? So a client might have an issue with something, and we can actually understand what the builder's doing. So a lot of the time, we're allaying the customer's fears, and builders generally welcome us on site.
Yeah, look, as long as you know, as you know, we're providing impartial information for the most part. Any client that, I vet my clients as well, and they are my clients. If I feel like they're trying to do the wrong thing, just as if the builder's trying to do the wrong thing, I try and identify that, because I don't really want to be involved in that. I'm not going in there to sink the builder or anything like that. It's more about looking at it objectively, and most of the time when there is a problem, the builder doesn't even know about it. You know, the builders might be, they might have 3, 4, 10 jobs, and they're not actually, on site all day, every day. So when they get this information, it's a chance for them to go back to their subbies to repair the problem, and it's their quality. They almost should be paying for the service, because it's a quality control for them. The larger builders have quality control people that go around and do that, but they miss things too, and it's important to get as much information about your build. You're spending a lot of money on it, and you want to know that it's right, it's compliant, and that you've done everything you can to make that happen.
And with our reporting system, so there was no way we were going to convert builders to doing building inspections and writing reports all night. You virtually can do the report on site, as long as you muck around with a few little photos just to put the report together. But are you coming home at night with much paperwork, or is it basically getting most of it done?
I think a lot of the guys, it's a bit of a mixture. Some guys do it on site. I personally prefer to be off-site when I'm doing it, but I take a ridiculous amount of photos too. So I can pretty much run through any inspection I've done again. So I'm generally taking, I wouldn't take less than probably 200 photos on a job. I did one last week where I took nearly 600 photos. So I'm not just taking photos of defects and problems, I'm taking photos of good things as well, and also areas that are, just identifying the various areas around the house, so that if I do need to, I can go back to it. But I'll generally get my reports done in the afternoon, and of course sometimes into the evening. I was working 12, 14, 15 hour days as a builder. I'm doing a lot less now, but it just depends on workload, and that depends on how much workload I want to take on as well.
Now we're at a new construction site, so we've got a house being built here, and Tim's been organised by the client to do what's called a stage report. A lot of people don't realise that they can actually get private consultants to help them during the stages of construction. So during the building process, it can become really stressful, can't it, Tim? Especially at that stage where a progress payment's due.
Yes. So quite often we'll get a phone call from a client saying, am I okay to pay this stage? And we're talking about tens of thousands of dollars here, so people tend to get a little bit nervous. and particularly not understanding the methods and the stages of construction, it can be really handy to have someone who's independent from everyone, without an agenda. Really all we're doing is just giving that advice, and that sort of all comes in together with the actual inspections that we do as well.
So the stages generally with a building such as this is the slab stage, frame, lock-up,
Yep.
and handover. Now we look like here we're pretty close to lock-up, so that's probably a time when you're doing a lock-up stage report. So what are some of the things we're looking for here?
So this is a really good stage because it's about the sort of point where they're about to put insulation in the walls. At that point, the frame's been checked, the building surveyors come through, we've come through as well, and then after that point, the building surveyor actually doesn't look at the job again until it's completed. Plaster on the walls, painted, cabinets in, everything's finished. So it's really good to get in there and see what's happened to the frame, how it may have been altered by the plumbers or electricians. Usually it's fine, but sometimes there's some elements of the frame that have been altered in an inappropriate way that need to get addressed before it gets plastered, and it's hidden forever. And that's where you can get those cracks in the house and those sort of things that you think might be due to a bit of subsidence or a bit of land movement, but are actually the result of something that happened during the process that just shouldn't have happened. So going through and getting those reports to the builder so they can rectify those things are really important.
Now, a lot of the time we get clients ringing up at handover stage, which is a very important report, but really the key is to get us in nice and early so that we can see behind the walls.
Exactly, yeah. Look, we can use thermal imaging and all those sort of things to try and get some information, but there's nothing like seeing it during that process. I can't tell you if the waterproofing's been done correctly at the end of a job where it's been built, but I can give you some more input if I see it during the process. And as good as it is to get that final defects report and really cement that in for the builder, it can also just being aware that is missing some of those stages that are potentially quite helpful through the process as well. Because a lot of the time we actually hear from the clients after they've had all these problems, and then they're sort of at their wits' end, and then they contact us, and we come through and we look at things, but we can only look at what we can see. We can't start pulling walls down and things like that. So being able to see that through all the stages is really important. You can see here the walls have been straightened, so the timber's been planed off, and there's also been some packing added. You've got your wall bracing here. It's all nicely attached. You can feel it's been nailed off, which is good. This is the party wall, so there's a unit on the other side here. You can see these brackets. They're part of the fire system. They're actually designed to melt if there's a fire, so it doesn't affect the other side of the house. Part of the things I'm looking at here is where these plumbing pipes are running through. I'm just looking to make sure they haven't cut through any of the structural timbers in the roof. In the ceiling space here, but which is in the floor space. You can see here they've made a modification to the steel, which I'll be putting on a report to say, to check the engineering for that, because technically, unless it's been engineered, which it looks like it probably has been because they've put a couple of extra bits of steel in there, you shouldn't be cutting holes in steel that big. But they've obviously needed to do that to run these plumbing pipes through. And you can see here, they haven't actually finished fitting off the plumbing, so that'd go in the report as an incomplete item. You can see that there's a plumbing pipe there that hasn't been fit off. Little bits of surface rust like this are generally not too much of an issue. We've got a sump pump here, the sump for the box gutter there that runs out to outside. So we'll be getting a thermal imaging camera on that to see if there's any moisture been coming through there, just to make sure that is actually sealed. But for the most part, this looks like it's pretty much ready for installation.
Okay, so we're signing off here. We've done our third inspection for the day. I just thought I'd ask a question before we finish up. Tim, what's the best part of being a Jim's franchisee?
Look, when I was building, I didn't really feel like I had much choice over the hours that I worked, and those hours were really based around what was probably going wrong on the building sites. Trades not turning up, or problems with the way work had been done, or something was missed, whether it was my fault or someone else's. It didn't really matter. I was the one that had to fix it. Now I'm still working hard. I'm still working long hours, but it's by choice. So if I want to work in the garden next Tuesday, I'll take Tuesday off. But you're still working to whatever the extent you want to work. I can turn on and off for work, and if I don't want to be contacted by new clients, then I'm turned off for it, and that's it. If I want to just go back to referrals from agents or conveyancers or whatever it is, then I can choose to do that. It gives me that flexibility, and the flexibility doesn't mean that I'm working less or not as hard. It just means that it's easier for me to judge my hours and manoeuvre what I want to do and how I want to do it. Whereas previously it was dictated by clients and work schedules and those sort of things. And when you're doing a build for 6 to 12 months, you have no choice. You're locked in for 12 months, and whatever stage that build's at, you have to do whatever you have to do for that particular part of the job. Whereas now it's quicker, it's in and out, and as much as I'm doing staged inspections for new construction, I'm very much going in, identifying issues, passing on a report, and then coming back at the next inspection, and maybe a little bit of communication in between. There's a lot less intensive in that regard, and it's nice.
And we're getting paid before we send the report to, which is something that builders are not used to.
That's a bonus, yeah. So I'm tending to get the phone calls from clients saying, should I pay the builder?
Yeah.
And invariably the answer is yes if the job's progressing and all those sort of things,
Yeah.
but it's a different feeling.
It's nice being on the other side of the fence there.
It's nice, yeah.
Also, being involved in a franchise, you're involved in a group too. Do you enjoy the camaraderie of all the other franchisees and getting around them?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, and I don't talk to everyone. There's certain people that you click with, like anything. There's over 100 guys and girls. I don't communicate with everyone, but at the same time, I've got some people that call me for things. I call other people for things. I'll catch up with them occasionally for breakfast, or have a chat on the phone for half an hour, or whatever it happens to be. And I know that it can be a fairly solitary existence if you choose it to be. But being part of that group, you've got shared experiences, and everyone. I haven't asked anything of anyone where they haven't been prepared to, donate some of their time, if you like, and help you out and do the right thing.
Yep.
And that's gold.
Yep. And I think a lot of the franchisees, from my experiences talking with them, they really do, and it's got to be suited to a person who is all about customer service, but they enjoy the satisfaction of customers, because we're talking to them during a very emotive stage. They're either buying a property or building, and you really do get appreciation from customers if you do the right thing.
Oh, absolutely. And there's nothing better than finishing that conversation and everyone being happy, and you've done your job, you've made sure they've got the information they need, and I always tell my clients, even if you want to call me in 6-12 months time, ask a question, feel free, not a problem. And that's nice as well, because I do have people call me back and say, I need this trade, do you know anyone? Or remember how we had this, well, this has happened now, or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's a building, it's a house, it's a big structure on a big pile of dirt. At the end of the day, things are going to change, things are going to go wrong, things are going to move, whatever it happens to be. And having someone on the other end of the line, both with me offering that advice and seeking that advice from other people sometimes, is invaluable.
Well, thanks very much, Tim, for having us along today. We've witnessed a day in the life of a Jim's Building Inspections franchisee.
No problem.
It's been very informative. And look, if you're someone, a building professional who's looking to get off the tools or wants to make an inquiry, please check us out at jimsbuildinginspections.com.au or give us a call on 131 546.